So we have no ability for a blue farm player to take this one because we don't have any blue farm players. So these are all kind of, except for Najeela, they're kind of fringe decks. So it's nice to see something that's a little bit more varied. And this is pod 4 in the tournament. All these players have at least 5 points, I would say. Yeah, 5 or 6. So they at least have a win and a draw.
The Vein Save saying, hey, Eminence Inc. CPO is requesting that we get to watch the Community MTG pod on stream if you guys can make that happen. Unfortunately, we cannot make that pod happen. There is some back-end reasons why we aren't pod 1 be able to be played on stream. So we will get a game with Ian on the stream, though, in the future. So you guys don't have to worry about it.
Ian is currently in pod 1, which we can't stream, unfortunately. But yeah, we definitely have a plan to get him eventually.
Okay, so let's get this pulled back up. And here we go. We've got the game. So, yeah, so you can see Nicholas is playing Yuriko going first. Lewis playing Heliod the Sun Crowned going second. Anthony playing Mono Blue Teferi going third. And then Robert on Najeela going fourth. So, pretty cool pod. Pretty sweet variety and stuff. So really, really cool to see how it goes. Yeah, Nihileth asking, will we see Seat 1 take it again? Yeah, I'm very interested to see. Anthony's a good player to watch here, the Mono Blue player. They're the person who won the Cash Cards Unlimited tournament that happened and won the Black Lotus. So, a very well represented player that's very familiar with cEDH. So excited to see what they do in this event. And then Yuriko is nothing to sleep on. We have Heliod the Sun Crowned, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the Walking Ballista Heliod. Yes. So, a stack that's able to utilize a bunch of stacks pieces, rule of law effects, and things like that, and then win the game with Walking Ballista combo by giving it lifelink and pinging on the table with infinite mana. So super, super cool thing to do. Or not infinite mana, puts infinite +1/+1 counters on it. You remove those counters, and you get to ping the entire table down. And then we have Robert on Najeela. Tried and true Najeela deck. Everybody loves a good old Najeela. And here you can see we have the players here. I'm actually going to go adjust that camera because we're a little close. But other than that, we're set to go.
So Yuriko is definitely, it's always a fun deck to play against. I actually just played against a Toshiro deck during break, and it's kind of ridiculous how much unblockable value you can get through with, just because there's so much that relies on being able to block and kill creatures. There's so much balance that comes from being able to block and kill creatures that Yuriko just kind of gets around. Especially in this pod, where Heliod and Teferi are not going to be putting forth any creatures. So that's almost guaranteed free swings between the one of the two of them. With that mono-white player taking up one of the spaces, and Najeela famously not being too heavy on counterspells, Teferi might be able to easily run away with this one, being the only mono-blue player. And last time I checked, the counterspell density in Yuriko is not terribly too high.
No, they play some unique counter spells, things like Misdirection and stuff like that, some really higher CMC spells. But they're not running like the same counterspell suite that you would see in another 2-color deck or something like Is It, right? They're a little bit more limited on the counterspells. Something that's important to note here is, though, one of the strongest effects that Mono Blue Teferi decks and things like this have are cards like Back to Basics, which in a pod like this is almost obsolete. It really only affects the Najeela player because Yuriko and Heliod playing, tons and tons of planes and things like that. There's almost no utility lands at all. And then Yuriko just being Dimir, shows just how, limited it'll be. Although this Yuriko could be on a Tainted Pact mana base. I do know that some Yuriko decks do that. We can check on that shortly just to confirm. So you can see here, Yuriko starting with a Phyrexian Walker, playing what looks like, I think, a Darkslick Shores. And then... man, Yuriko cards are going to be tough for me throughout the rest of this stream. We're going to have to figure this out as we go. Then you have the Urza player playing Land Go, or the Heliod player on Mono White playing Land Go. And then you have Anthony on Mono Blue Teferi playing a Island into a Mox Diamond into a Sensei's Divining Top. So pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, that Changeling Outcast is definitely a very common turn one play in terms of Yuriko, and getting something that out that quickly in that Phyrexian Walker, getting 2 bodies out that quickly for Yuriko to transform into, it's a really good start.
You can see here, this is the second player that we've seen asked to pick up the mono blue Teferi and read the card.
Yes.
You can see that players are very unfamiliar with this deck. Something that gives a huge advantage to Anthony in the game. If you want to consider Burr's advantage or, something that can affect a cEDH game like this, people might ignore it or not respect it because they don't understand how powerful a deck like this can be. You can see we have 2 mana here being open, swinging in at the Najeela player with the Changing Outcast and the Phyrexian Walker, using that mana to ninjutsu in Yuriko, putting the Phyrexian Walker back into hand, hitting off the top, 2 lands, and players not taking anything. And then I wouldn't be surprised to see the Phyrexian Walker, enter back into play this turn before we pass to Luis. So Luis playing Heliod the Sun Crown, looking to develop some stacks pieces maybe. Yuriko kind of has a good time being able to play underneath stacks. But seeing Najeela and mono blue Teferi, it's going to be difficult for them, specifically for the Najeela player, because being in 4th seat here makes it really, really difficult for you to develop faster than the rest of the table. But you can see here, Luis is playing a Mana Crypt, and they're using that to cast their Heliod the Sun Crown, holding open a white. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something coming after that, but it looks like we're passing the turn back over to Anthony, mono blue Teferi.
Yep, we got mental misplay in chat. We got Alan watching. Alan's pretty amazing at going around and getting all the commentary from all the events that he attends. And yeah, as I mentioned before, the only one that has the potential to put up any blocking creatures, obviously blocking is kind of a luxury for Yuriko, but the only one with the potential to put up blocking creatures is Najeela. And for Najeela to be going last, it almost guarantees Yuriko some free attacks.
Yeah. Just so you know, Alan, you can get the event standings at eminence.events. You go to the Silicon Dynasty tab, and it has a bracket that you can view. It's the first button that you can see on the event.
Yeah, it's right there in chat. The Dark Rituals put it in. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dark Ritualist. Okay, so now here is where we're going to run into some problems. There's so many new arts of so many new cards. I don't know what this card we have put into play under the mono blue player is. Oh my god, these arts.
I can find out.
Yeah. So we're going to go find out what's being put into play, but chat, if you feel like you know, let us know. Metamorph, Phyrexian Metamorph? Making a copy of Soul Ring. Okay, that makes sense. Phyrexian Metamorph making a copy of Soul Ring into a Moonsliver key. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, so pretty good turn here from Anthony. Really developing the board state, using that Metamorph to get some more mana advantage. Metamorph has a lot of utility. I've been playing it a lot in Vintage Cube. It's a really cool card that does so much more than just, come into play as... it's kind of like a copy artifact and a phantasmal image all in one, which is really cool to see. And it's a little mana intensive, but I mean, for 3 mana and 2 life, it's not that hard to cast.
In a mono blue deck with mana up the rear, you can it overperforms.
So this Drannith Magistrate coming down just a turn too late for the Najeela player. You can see, and obviously Yuriko gets around Drannith Magistrate, but the Heliod is already developed here, so it's kind of only stopping Anthony at this point. But if we can get that Heliod off the board, this could end up being really, really big for Robert to kind of catch up to the rest of the table here. Natural Crunch calling me out in the chat saying the same dude that plays a Korean sacred guide so nobody knows what it does. You don't have to expose me like that, Crunch, okay? So you see the Yuriko player here. We're moving to combat. Swing with the Phyrexian Walker. I'm assuming we have something else to ninjutsu in right now. So we're going to see what we do here. We hit 2 lands off the top on the first one. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where we go with this. And it looks like, yep, we're ninjutsuing in a ninja. So we're going to get 3 Yuriko triggers off of this. Yeah, mental misplay. Alana in 3rd. Yeah, Alana won the last round pretty decisively there against Ken Bauman and Alex Accepted, 2 previous tournament winners from the year 2022. So Alana's got a great showing so far. She's 2-0 in the Swiss right now. Prosperous Thief.
Nice.
Yeah. So many ninjas, so many interesting cards that are in Yuriko. We have the deck list pulled up next to us to help us, identify what we have.
Whenever 1 or more ninja or rogue creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token.
Deal combat damage to a player. So since 2 ninjas connected with 2 players, we created 2 treasure tokens here.
Perfect. That makes sense.
This Yuriko player is developing very, very fast. I am curious to see how Luis here, the Heliod player, responds. We have a lot of mana here, and we have the ability to, drop some stacks pieces that might be able to affect the game. But if the Yuriko player starts getting some big flips here, it could spell bad for the rest of the table, especially now that mono blue Teferi doesn't have access to their Teferi at this point.
Yeah.
So they have to they have to kind of come up with a way to get rid of that Drannith Magistrate.
Not to mention that Anthony's taking the brunt of the damage here. It looks like putting out all that extra mana really made Anthony a target right away, but now seeing that the main engine of the deck, Teferi, is no longer in play, maybe it's time to kind of pivot this damage towards maybe the Drannith or the Heliod.
A Nykthos is also a huge land drop from the Heliod player. Mono white decks love cards like Nykthos.
Yeah.
If you're a Stacks deck, you love cards like Serra Sanctum. Anything that you can do to give you a mana advantage over the rest of the table, this is pretty much Mono white's version of Gaia's Cradle here,
right.
Putting a Nykthos into play. So seeing how we're going to develop here, looks like we're tapping 2 mana here.
Yeah, Nykthos not looking too intimidating right now, but if we see Hushbringer, for example, that definitely gets that devotion up. And Hushbringer stopping activated abilities
Or ETBs.
doesn't do much to Yuriko.
No, it stops the Thoracle win condition.
It does.
So it means that Najeela can't have access to Dockside. It means that Yuriko doesn't have access to Thassa's Oracle. And the mono blue player doesn't have access to their Teferi. So the table is getting to a point where it's kind of getting locked down. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here. So now we're untapping on Anthony's board. We have the Phyrexian Metamorph, which reminder to those in chat that Phyrexian Metamorph is actually a soul ring that it is copied. And then we have a Moonsliver Key, Sensei's Divining Top, a Mox Diamond, and we have 3 lands in play. So we're going to see what we're going to do with our turn here. We have a lot of decisions to make. We can actually even check in on the players here and see what's going on. There's a little bit of table talk. You can see actually the player closest to our camera here, that's Anthony. So kind of just debating what to play, looking at their hand, talking with the rest of the table. It's kind of really cool to see this interaction here and kind of this table talk and discussion, deciding what we're going to do, what we're going to play. Everybody just kind of staring at each other. Anthony looking at his board, trying to make a decision. Looking at this board state right now, to me, it looks like this Yuriko player is going to be able to start running away with the game unless we have more blockers being put up by the Teferi player and the Najeela player. Especially if we have some evasive attackers here. Oh, and it looks like we passed our turn. So Anthony just didn't do anything on his turn, untapped and said go. And now Robert has developed a Najeela on board. So we're going to start making tokens here. It's going to make it a lot harder for the Yuriko player to swing in and attack the Najeela player. And with the Heliod player having their Heliod online and a Hushbringer in play, basically the only open attacks here is Teferi. Looks like we lost our Mana Crypt trigger here, so we'll be taking 3. And now we're on to Nicholas's turn on Yuriko.
Yeah, life total is about to get really slim here, especially with an Ancient Tomb on one side of the board and Mana Crypts on the other. These, not to mention just the onboard damage, but the Yuriko triggers are going to start taking like some serious tolls on these life
Alan
totals.
in the chat is saying, I thought Blue Farm only won when Legacy players were piloting it. Funny that you mentioned that because Matt Sperling, who is a 60 card player, ended up winning the first round while playing Blue Farm on stream. So you are not wrong, Alan.
Oh, we see a Tetsuko. Oh my gosh. There's no way that this amount of value can be stopped anytime soon, especially with most of these players doing nothing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this pod composition, right, unless the Teferi player just has a hand stacked full of interaction, it looks like we're down to 2 cards. So it means that's very unlikely. Heliod has no way to answer this board except for, creature removal, spot removal specifically. And Najeela, it packs counterspells, but the amount of impactful cards that you have in play, you sacrifice a lot of interaction for the ability to play these, 1-card win conditions.
Exactly. And unfortunately, this turn placement just puts Najeela so far behind, and Yuriko is just going wide faster than Najeela can hope to at this point.
Yes, absolutely. And you have to remember that Yuriko provides card advantage as well. It's not just, flipping cards and hitting our opponents. No, It provides card advantage in the fact that you're drawing. And you can see here, all 3 creatures are connecting.
Especially with Tetsuko on the field.
Triggers. So we're getting a miscast off the flip.
Nothing too scary.
A land and...
Okay, a Curse Totem.
A Curse Totem. Curse Totem is...
Yeah. Once again, just locking down that board in a way that Hushbringer isn't already. So Najeela is just really going to suffer here with that Curse Totem coming out, and he is playing it right now. Absolutely.
Yeah,
There's no reason
this
not
Curse
to.
Totem is so huge at this point in the game. It stops the Najeela, it stops the Heliod. It just shuts down the table, and the mono blue players shut down from the Drannith Magistrate. So you are free as the Yuriko player to do everything, and everyone else is worried about you now.
It's really just upsetting to see this Drannith Magistrate play, is that it was blatantly only turning off Teferi at this point. And to see a Yuriko deck already so ahead with all this mana generation and those 2 bodies right away, it was it might have been a risky choice to play that Drannith when he did, just because you're kind of just you're putting yourself in a 1v1 that you're not going to win at this
Well,
point.
the Teferi doesn't benefit you in any way, though. You know what I
Fair.
mean? So shutting down the Teferi is still very important, and you don't know what the other players at the table could be doing, casting cards from graveyards, casting cards from exile. But Yuriko is historically well known for playing well under stacks.
Yep.
So this is a deck that just kind of cuts through a pod like this with ease. And you can see there, we tried to offer you Can't Refuse the Curse Totem, and we responded with a Dispel from the Yuriko player.
Yep.
So this Yuriko player has it all.
This amount of card advantage is not going to be beat.
At this point, if you're someone like Luis or Anthony, you're looking for cards like Cyclonic Rift, things like Winds of Abandon, right?
Yep.
You're trying to get rid of everything on this Yuriko player's board because they're just going to bury you in card advantage and win this game easily.
Yeah, and this Sensei's Top can help us find something on Anthony's board, but I mean, there's only so much you can dig deep with 3 cards.
Yes.
There's
yeah.
only so much board presence or board removal that Teferi can run. I'm sure he's got bounce spells galore, but bouncing 1 or 2 of these ninjas, I mean, slowing down Yuriko's damage is good and all, but the Tetsuko, the combination is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and when you look at what Yuriko has in play, you're talking about card advantage, you're talking about mana advantage, you're talking about resource advantage. They right now are in the lead. And it's up to the rest of the players to figure out a way to answer it. I would be interested to see if the rest of the table is trying to politic against the Yuriko player there. And Nicholas is the if you look at our screen right now, Nicholas is the one with the hat and the sunglasses, just like calmly, playing confidently, not really talking with the rest of the table, just kind of doing their thing and continuing to progress their board state. Oh, and we can see Yuriko player tapping some mana using a miscast. This might be a good time to let you guys know that Silicon Dynasty is sponsored by 2 amazing sponsors, one of which is Moxfield. Moxfield, one of the best deck building websites out there, best deck building website out there for all of your EDH needs, as well as any other form of competitive Magic that you play. They have amazing tools and resources. They have a play tester and things like that. And thanks to Moxfield, we were able to make this event a 5K tournament, allowing us to give first place $1,100 for winning this event, which is, amazing to be able to do. Do we know what version of Najeela Robert is on? No, we can check this out. Are you able to pull up Robert's Najeela list? And we want to figure out if he's running the Nas version. I have the deck list. Let me pull it up. We want to know if he's running the Nas version or if he's running the creature heavy version.
Is that a sphere? Is that a rings?
That a
rings?
That's Rings of Bright Earth. And that is a Rings of Bright Earth being put into play on Anthony's board.
Is that from Word Mention?
It looks like we're...
Yeah, Word Mention went and got rings.
Oh, I
Gotcha.
see.
We can only anticipate that Anthony has some way of bouncing the Tyrannith then.
Yes. So here. Yeah, that makes more sense. I actually have all the deck lists for us, right? So this is... Robert is playing a version of Pongo's Najeela list. So it's going to be the more creature-heavy version. It's basically a straight port over of Pongo's list. So it's running all the dorks, running the Derevi combos, and running a lot of the creature-based stuff. But it is running, ad nauseum. It's running. Is it running the Underworld Breach combo? No, it is not running Underworld Breach combo though. So it's running ad nauseum and it's running the creature-based strategies, but not like. To my surprise, not running Underworld Breach, LED, or Brain Freeze.
Right. So Najeela has very few ways to dig themselves out of this, unfortunately.
Yeah, right now they're hoping that this Drennis Magistrate is doing enough for them, and currently in this board state it is, so it's not too bad. Okay, we can see Anthony doing as much as he can right now. We put a Mana Crypt into play and a Basalt Monolith, so... Oh, Word of Adventure got countered. They hard cast the rings. Thank you, Damon, for catching this. Yeah, feel free if we miss anything to remind us in the chat. And we all make mistakes, so we don't always catch everything, especially when the board state's moving this fast. So thank you guys for the reminders. Rings of Bright Hearth into play. So whenever you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2. If you do copy that ability, you may choose new targets with a copy. So right now, this card doesn't do a whole lot except for copy Sensei's Dividing Top activations, which isn't, the most beneficial thing, except for maybe the draw card. But once the Teferi is down, you get to double up on your Teferi activations and things like that.
Exactly.
Which is when things become really, really important. But with this Drenith Magistrate out, you're just not getting there. So, Surreal saying my sound is fading in and out. That's because I had to grab my laptop off the floor, and we have very fancy brand new XLR mics. So every time I look away from the microphone, my voice gets faded away. So I'll try to be more cognizant of that in the future. Yeah. So infinite colorless, draw your deck. Oh. Yeah, that would make actually a lot of sense. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you guys for pointing this out. Yeah. So with the Basalt Monolith, infinite mana with the
rings.
With the rings lets you draw your deck. Oh, I see, because you get to copy the untap.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important,
For some reason, I thought the untap was a mana ability, but it's definitely not.
Yeah, then infinite Sensei draws.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for pointing that out. Classic OG combo. But it looks like the Basalt Monolith has been answered. So luckily we won't be doing that. I feel like the sound is delayed from the
Buff
video.
Town Bullies, I think that we're just delayed. I think that we're trying to catch up to everything, trying to look at these deck lists and try to watch the board at the same time.
Yeah.
We're getting faster, though.
There's a 15-second delay on the stream, so when you guys are putting in your chats, we're responding as soon as we're able to. So that's why things are going the way
Grand
they are.
Abolisher on this deck from Najeela with 4 open mana. This could be something interesting, especially if he's trying to affect the board state without any repercussions.
Yeah, it's okay, boomer technology, yeah.
Classic.
No, so getting this Grand Abolisher down is actually really huge because it allows Robert to develop a board state. And if someone like Nicholas taps out on the Yuriko board state, or if Anthony is not developing any creatures, this allows us to open us up for some type of Derevi win line, especially if we have a Rainbow land in play, starting to get Warriors into play and things like that.
What is this land next to the Soul Ring?
I'm not sure exactly what land that is next to the Soul Ring. If you can check his deck list there and see what art it is. Hey, thank you, Bear Snuggle, for the kind words. I really, really appreciate that. Okay, so Grand Abolisher has resolved. And we have not moved yet to Nicholas's turn.
Thran Quarry.
Oh, it's a
At
Thran
the end
Quarry.
of each turn, if you control no creature, sacrifice it and adds 1 mana of any color. Interesting.
Yeah, so Thran Quarry is a very sketchy land to be running in your deck.
Absolutely.
Because any bounce basically gets rid of that Thran Quarry. Like if they have creature removal, board wipes, things like that, your Thran Quarry just goes away. But it is a 5-color land.
Really
and in a
is,
deck like Najeela, it is pretty useful. But it's the same kind of concept as things like Glimmer Void and lands like that, where if they have that restriction of having something into play at all time, otherwise you have to sacrifice it, a lot of people aren't confident in playing those lands. That's why a card like Glimmer Void, even though we have such an artifact-heavy meta, people do not feel confident in playing that land. So Thran Quarry in a deck like Najeela, in this deck, I think you're comfortable doing it because you have a high density of dorks and things like that. And any 5-color land is a good land in Najeela. So,
ooh, did Najeela just get bounced to hand?
It looks like that may have been the case.
From Yuriko, I'm assuming, and then replayed?
And then we're replaying the Najeela here. That way we can't attack with it.
Correct.
And generate some warriors. Because we don't want those blockers if you're the Yuriko player. Natural Crunch saying Thran Quarry is a goated land. That's because Crunch plays casual.
Jeez.
There's a really nice casual deck out there. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Joda the Unifier. So
Unbelievable.
Quickly coming for my spot as the staple deck of 0-3 drops.
Oh
Joda
my
the
God.
Unifier.
Joda the Unifier is absolutely busted. You can't convince me otherwise.
All right, so now we're moving on to Nicholas's turn. Nicholas going straight to combat, not wasting any time here.
Yuriko has 1 plan and it's doing it well.
Yep.
We just got to hit some heaters off these Yuriko triggers. They've been very lucky so far, which is why we're seeing all these high life totals.
Yeah, the upside to this though is that you're thinning your deck when you're doing these. So hitting all your lands and hitting all your stuff just means that as the game progresses, you're going to hit bigger and bigger spells.
Absolutely.
And especially if you get something like a Scroll Rack into play at some point where you get to stack your deck and stack your hand. Wow, we are hitting the lowest CMC spells in this deck.
I believe that's pretty unfortunate to see. Yeah, we're reading this.
I think that's 2 CMC, maybe 3.
I think that was 3.
Yeah, 4 life total. This is
this is starting to hurt me. But it's interesting to see that Tetsuko isn't swinging because that 3rd connect can get a 3rd treasure that could be very important.
It could be very important, especially when you have cards in your deck like Peer into the Abyss that just say I win the game when you have the mana to cast them.
And it'd be interesting to hang back Tetsuko as a 1/3 just as a blocker for Najeela, but it's not going to block and kill Najeela. Maybe just holding up that blocker is enough.
Azrael in the chat saying Golos is the best casual deck too. Yeah, because you have to rule 1 it into play because it's rightfully banned.
Rightfully, absolutely.
Or rule 0. Did I say rule 1? You got to rule 0 it into play. All right, so we put in a training center, or we're tapping some mana here. It looks like we're putting a big spell into the stack. 4 mana being tapped total.
A temporal trespass?
Hey.
Is that being cast?
Yeah, that's being cast.
Oh my lord. Tapping out almost with 1 land up and 2 treasures. Okay, so there's definitely some counter magic backup for this.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any yet, but we see a delay from Anthony countering this temporal trespass. If this resolves, the game's pretty much over. The amount of advantage that comes off of 4 swings, which is even more surprising with this. We see Force of Will pitching blue card.
Yeah.
Pitching some random ninja, I assume.
I mean, yeah, you get an extra turn here. You take an extra combat.
What is this card? What is this instant?
There's so much like new tech in these decks.
So much new tech from Najeela.
I'll connect that to my phone to the Wi-Fi so we have the deck list a little faster. But
Concerted Defense? Counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1 plus an additional 1 for each creature in your party. There's no way this is a Concerted Defense.
Why are we
So this party,
this
we're playing... Okay, so these are all humans, though. Human and warriors. And wizards. No, because Janeth is a wizard. So that's 3. So they couldn't pay 3. No, wait. Abolisher is a cleric. So it was 4. That's wicked insane because Nicholas would have been able to afford 3. But because Concerted Defense, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 4 for 1 mana. Oh my god.
That's
cEDH
so funny.
stable Concerted Defense. That's incredible.
I've never seen that card successfully cast.
Because we have Najeela, human warrior, Dranath Magistrate, human wizard, and Grand Abolisher, human cleric. That's incredible.
This has to be the best that Concerted Defense has ever been, on the stack.
This is actually an incredibly cool card, and the art's really cool. It's kind of like an Avatar of the Last Airbender looking
Buff
art.
Down Bully's telling me, this has been in Najeela for a while. I'm not familiar with it as a Najeela player, simply just because I play the Turbo Naz version of Najeela, so I don't play cards like Grand Abolisher or Dranath Magistrate. I'm just trying to Naz the table as fast as I can.
Najeela is not something I'm familiar with. That was incredible. So it looks like the stack is resolved and Temporal Trespass has been countered. Even with that 3 mana and all that card advantage, we only had 1 counter spell being the Force of Will. Yeah. Not to mention that Nicholas's hand is looking a little slim after pitching that blue card.
Yeah, and can we talk about the fact that we drew the Temporal Trespass and didn't get to flip it?
Exactly, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's
so
unfortunate.
The flips here for the Yuriko player have not been the best. This game should be much closer than it is.
Absolutely.
And it's simply because we're just not getting the cards.
We're just getting
Adam plays casual. Okay, thanks, guys.
And we're seeing a Phyrexian Revoker on the stack from Lewis.
Ooh, what are we going to name here?
What are we naming here?
Ooh, and we're showing a Lion Sash. So, yeah, so we put a Phyrexian Revoker on. I don't know what the Phyrexian Revoker is naming. We have a Lion Sash put into play as well. Oh, Phyrexian Revoker naming Najeela, which is interesting when we have a curse totem in play.
Yeah.
I guess just double up, right? We don't want that Najeela player getting any answers.
Walking by that table, they're all in high spirits for someone who's about to get murdered by ninjas and/or warriors.
Maybe someone has a board wipe that they've displayed to the rest of the table.
Not to mention cEDH stable Lion Stash. That thing cannot be slept on.
Lion Stash actually is surprisingly good in a situation.
Very good. This. The more stacksy the board gets, the better Lion Sash performs.
Although, actually, in this pod specifically, it doesn't perform that well because this Najeela deck isn't running Underworld Breach.
Totally.
And the Yuriko player isn't on a Reanimator plan.
Right.
So, yeah. So, it might not be as useful as you would think, but we have enough mana with the Shrine, the Nykthos, that we're going to be able to pump this Lion Sash up pretty heavy.
Totally. Looking up this mono white deck to see what else kind of spicy tech is in here. The deck name is mono white is good, I swear, all lowercase. Hilarious. Duplicated from Anesthetic DM.
Yeah.
Just if anybody knows of the list.
I would assume some people in the mono white Discord, some things like that. This list has been getting upgraded slowly as the years go on, and mono white gets more and more powerful cards.
Yeah, in terms of stack pieces, we have seen nothing yet. We've got a Karn the Great Creator in here. We've got all of our Linvalas, our Elish Norns of the world. I cannot wait to see an Elish Norn get slapped in here. We have the mana to cast it for sure. Our devotion's up to 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So netting 1 off of that Nykthos activation.
Hey, netting anything is good
for
this Nykthos activation.
Not to mention this very scary ring's just sitting here all shiny like.
Yeah, I mean with the Basalt Monolith being in the grave, you're not as worried about it. Now, if there were some other infinite mana outlets in the deck, then I'd be more concerned. But it looked like that was just kind of what they were setting up for.
Totally.
Was trying to go infinite with that Basalt Monolith there, and then draw their deck with Sensei's Divining Top. Now we have to pivot to some other type of lines and see where we can get with that.
And there's a plethora of cards to exile with Yuriko constantly churning out all these instants and all. Najeela doing the same thing, and Anthony just filling his board with random rocks and lands. There's plenty of stuff to exile with Lion Sash, and just get that board presence up there. And board presence is the only thing that seems to matter right now, especially with Yuriko popping off like it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are now on Anthony's turn. Looks like we put a transmute artifact on the stack.
Incredible.
Oh my god, I couldn't even see this because of the glare.
Yes, because
so we put a transmute artifact on the stack, and we paid a ton of mana, and we sacked our Mox Diamond to do so. So I wonder if we have, what would be transmuting for here? I mean, does the deck look
something else that works with rings? Clearly,
something that either works with rings. We could be trying to get infinite mana in some other way to use top to draw our library. There's a lot of different things that we could be going for. So yeah, this deck plays a lot of artifacts.
Yeah, looking at we can see. Let's see if we can get a Grim Monolith off of this here and have the same effect with infinite mana with rings. Correct.
I believe you copy the effect.
Untap,
yeah, you just copy
Grim
the
Monolith
untap.
will do it. Natural Crunch beating us to it in chat.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that could be what we're getting here. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know what
but
else.
But unfortunately, maybe I'm just stupid, but I'm not seeing what infinite mana gives us here unless we have something else.
No,
in
you
hand.
draw with top.
Oh, duh.
Yeah.
Wait,
so
I'm confused.
You get to copy the activations and then
draw your deck with top.
Yeah, you draw twice, right? And you put top on top, and then you draw your top and you draw the card. Oh. I believe that's how it works.
So with rings, you can copy the Sensei's Divining Tap draw.
Yeah, because it's not a mana ability. If you have the mana to do it.
So you draw two cards and put it on top.
You have to generate the infinite mana, and then you activate top and copy the top.
Because you draw two cards and then put it on top once. I understand.
So KJR is saying Grim is mana neutral.
KJR, first time in chat. Definitely nice to hear from you. That is very.
So let's
look this up. I'm pretty sure it's a 3 to.
No, it's 4 to untap.
It's 4 to untap.
So if you're going to copy the untap, you make 3, you pay 2, you copy it, or you have to make 4 to untap it. You need 6 mana to start the loop. Yeah, but Mana Vault, does Mana Vault do it? At the beginning of upkeep, you may pay 4. No, so Mana Vault I don't think does it either. Yeah, so no, Grim Monolith or Mana Vault doesn't work here. So I don't know what we'd be. Yeah, there's no other infinite mana outlets here. So we do have a Manifold Key, which means that if we get the Manifold Key out with something like the Grim Monolith or the Mana Vault into play, then we can generate the infinite mana. Because does it say untap target artifact? So you can untap the Manifold Key itself and then generate infinite mana that way. So that would be probably what we have to. The line that we have to do, and we have the mana on board to be able to do that, but it takes a ton of setup. But basically this looks like that's what Anthony's out is right now, is we need to draw our library some way with top.
Yeah, not to mention that the cards in hand are running slim because Anthony has no card advantage here. We're just top decking and hoping for the best, and obviously filtering with top, but there's only so much you can do. Looks like Najeela got killed, and we see a Grim Hireling immediately to replace it.
It's a good thing that we removed that.
When did Najeela die? I thought he got bounced to hand and then recast. Am I silly? Am I missing tons and tons of footage?
The Mana Vault is for Teferi. Yeah, but we do have to get rid of the Dreaded Magistrate before the Teferi can do its thing. So that's kind of preventing the Teferi player from developing their board state here.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there aren't any very open attacks. I mean, we can swing into a Tashiro, but Tashiro's a 1/3, so of course that's not going to connect.
Yeah.
But we still have 2 attacks here, and it looks like we're taking them from both at Anthony. Okay, gotcha. And then having 1 trigger for 2 charges off of Grim Hireling.
Yeah, something that really is unfortunate here is that you can't really pressure Nicholas's life total as much as that you would like to. And so you see these players kind of having to make these concessions of swinging at someone like Anthony when I think the threat at the table is Nicholas and has been for the majority of the game. So now you can see we're moving to Nicholas's turn now, untapping all of our mana and all of our creatures. We're going to get a draw here, and we're going to get a bunch of Yuriko triggers, and whatever we draw from those Yuriko triggers are going to go into our hand, and we have a slew of mana to be able to cast all the spells that we want.
Najeela ate a snuff out. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. I appreciate it. And it just sucks to be Anthony here because as I, kind of called back at the beginning of the game, there's no creature presence here. So you kind of have to, an early stacks piece like Dranith is just really crippling. And there's no way to dig yourself out from under this, especially when you're the easy target for everything that's trying to accrue card advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're just kind of like the unintentional target when the table is just trying to accrue these treasures and hopefully use Grim Hireling's activation to get rid of Najeela or Yuriko and some of these other little guys.
Yeah. Just a reminder too to anybody that's watching here. All donations that are going to the Twitch stream today are going to be donated from Eminence to Extra Life. Extra Life is here with us at Silicon Dynasty. They're taking in-person donations. They have like prizes and things like that for people that are here at the event, and they help support amazing causes and things like that. So we are donating every donation that goes to the Twitch stream today to Extra Life. So if you want to support Silicon Dynasty, support Extra Life, and help us make a large donation to a charity, make sure that you donate some money through Twitch for that.
Absolutely. Please, if you'd like to see these streams and you'd like to see these events keep happening, we have 4 more events this year. We're going from coast to coast. So we have 2 more coming up in Georgia and Pennsylvania, and then we have 1 more coming back to San Jose. So if you'd like to see these things keep happening, please show your support. And then we're seeing combat here on Nicholas's turn. Still holding back the Teshiro, which the Tetsuro.
It's just a safe
totally
bet to not swing in with the Tetsuya.
Yeah, that 1/3, that's a big butt.
All right, so I'm excited to see these Yuriko flips here and see what we get into, because we have been hitting nothing all game.
Exactly.
Like these Yuriko
I'm
flips
ready
have
for
been
a big flip.
Horrifically bad.
Really tank these life totals.
Yeah, Azuriel, thank you for the clarification there. So what will we flip?
We do have very attractive Judge Seth eating, some crumblies, some good pretzel dots in the background. So any bad calls or distractedness will be directly caused by that.
So here you can see we have the players going on. So we have these Yuriko triggers. It looks like they're being put on the stack, or we're waiting for damage to resolve. So just analyzing the board state, we have Nicholas there with the hat, kind of tapping some mana here. Ninjutsuing in, another ninja here.
Incredible. We saw this come to hand earlier because it was a tiny little baby hit because it was 3 mana. Let's see if it has any cool effects.
So now we have 4 ninjas that are dealing combat damage this game. It looks like, it bounces a creature to hand.
Mistblade Shinobi? No, that's... it is Mistblade Shinobi. Yep. But whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature that player controls to its owner's hand. Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. We see a 3-drop, a land. Oh, what is it? What are these things?
Oh, that's the MDFC land,
yep.
I believe.
And then we had...
Oh, you're like snapping at us. I thought you wanted something. Oh. So yeah, now you can see the life total starting to change here. This is what the Yuriko player has been waiting for this entire game, is hitting those big flips. We've been seeing them getting drawn to hand like over and over and over again. And now with these treasures and all this mana advantage here, all these big spells are going to start to be put on the stack. And it's going to start making a huge difference in this game.
Still trying to find out what this black card going to hand is.
It's instant.
Am I silly? No, I feel like it's a...
So
classic Yuriko playing all these weird cards.
It's just hard to see because of all these full arts and everything.
And the Phyrexian Walker coming right back down.
Yep. And then...
Oh, and here's the Shimmermer. Feels like. I think that's a Shimmermer.
It's a mirror. It's not a Shimmer mirror, though. Yeah, I mean, I at this point, I don't see what the rest of the table does here that's going to stop this Yuriko player from winning the game. I mean, they have a Curse Totem in play, stopping the Heliod player from being able to win. They did get rid of the Draneth, though, which means that the Mono Blue Teferi player now has the ability to kind of go off.
Unfortunately, the Mono Blue Teferi player is probably the one holding Yuriko before combat, because being at 18 like he was before combat, their life can disappear if you weren't being so.
So it was crippling fear. So you choose a creature type, and creatures that aren't of the chosen type get -3/-3 until end of turn. Okay. So they chose ninjas. So everything that wasn't a ninja got -3/-3 until end of turn.
And that's what killed the Draneth. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can see that the Heliod player was able to, uptick that Lion Sash. The Heliod has 5 toughness, so it didn't get affected there.
To be completely fair, I don't know why you would cast Crippling Fear here, because the Draneth dies, which wasn't affecting Nicholas at all, and the Hushbringer dies, which also wasn't really affecting Yuriko at all, unless he's going for a Thoracle Win, which we haven't seen any evidence of.
Yeah, so now you can see that we have the Teferi online, which means that Anthony can start kind of progressing his board game plan here.
Yeah, but this enablement came from Yuriko, which is really ridiculous to see because Yuriko is in a winning position. Clearing the board in that way of 2 stacks pieces, 3 stacks pieces, because we had Phyrexian.
Yeah, so there isn't a Drannith no more, as our Arcana 13 has mentioned. So now we're watching the mono blue Teferi player start to kind of go off here.
I'd really be curious about that reasoning, just because we had 2 different stacks pieces holding down Najeela. Not that Najeela is really in play right now, but getting rid of that Drannith for Teferi just seemed...
The Crippling Fear seemed kind of completely unnecessary. And now you can see we've generated a bunch of mana and put an Urza into play.
Which is horrible.
Yeah, this is like Secret Commander Urza at this point. So Teferi, Temporal Archmage. So this is a deck that I know that not a ton of people are super familiar with because it's kind of an old cEDH list.
Right.
So Teferi Temporal Archmage has 3 abilities on it. The +1 is look at the top 2 cards of your library and put one of them into your hand and the other on the bottom. The -1 is untap up to 4 target permanents. And then the -10 is you get an emblem or you may activate loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control on any player's turn anytime you could cast an instant. And Teferi Temporal Archmage can be your commander. So you can see what we did there is we cast the Teferi, -1'd it, untapped all of our artifacts and mana. So that way we could play this Urza, create a construct, and now we're going to try to go off, which is super scary to see.
Yeah, Jin's Shooting Star wondering if Yuriko kind of threw the game here. I'd really be curious as to what that reasoning was behind that. Maybe just seeing the Crippling Fury and wanted to kind of
cast the spells in your hand.
I guess, maybe we're moving to discard at this point, but I really don't think that was the case.
Yeah, so we're going to see. I don't think it was a punt. It looks like we're digging here with the Sensei's Divining Top. So we're going to see what this does here. Phyrexian Metamorph, so we're activating the Soul Ring, looking at the top 3 of our library. Oh, yeah, we're just using the mana that we have right now, copying the Sensei's Divining Top activation with Rings of Brighthearth, and then putting the Soul Ring or the Sensei's Top on top of our library, drawing it, and then drawing the card subsequent after that.
Right.
So we have enough mana here where we're able to kind of just do this, but it looks like unless we draw into exactly what we need here, this won't be enough to get us there.
Yeah, so it looks like we're out of the woods for now, but unfortunately, with the luck we've been having so far, closing the game as Nicholas might be a little difficult. I mean, Anthony is only at 8, so this could very likely be Anthony's last turn alive.
Yeah, I mean, very, very likely. The only benefit there to casting the Crippling Fear is the fact that you have no creatures on the board for your next attack, right? Except for the Heliod player. But not seeing the Urza and the Construct coming is kind of a big deal. But if your creatures are unblockable, it really does not matter. Exactly.
Not to mention that getting the creature damage in isn't really something that we're worried about because with the creature evasion that we have, we're only just looking for the Yuriko triggers at this point.
The Dark Ritualist is asking Eminence MTG, what does the red mean on a player's name in standings? Game loss. It means they were awarded a game loss. So, looks like we're still activating top here, copying the ability with rings, putting a Mystic Remora into play. So yeah, it looks like Anthony here is setting up for the turn after this one, which might not happen if the Yuriko player gets to untap here.
Yeah, and we have really, I'm looking at this Yuriko list, I'm looking for just an average CMC. Yeah, looks like we have an average mana value of 2.44 without lands, which is definitely high. So we hopefully, with all these low mana spells we've been hitting, we should see something with 1, 2, 3, 4 triggers.
Yeah.
Enough to kill Anthony, at least.
The only downside here is that you're one removal spell away from unlocking the Heliod player, with your Curse Totem being the only thing that's stopping them, right?
Exactly.
So now you have to hope that you get to your turn and that you win on your turn. Otherwise, at end step, Luis could easily just remove your Curse Totem if they have the ability to, and then you lose the game to something as simple as a Walking Ballista.
Absolutely.
And you can see here that Robert is paying the mana to cast Najeela. And we have 3 mana available after the Najeela cast, Najeela costing 5 mana. Yep. And then we are passing the turn to Nicholas. So Nicholas getting to untap here. We're going to see if we're moving right to combat or what's going to happen.
Hopefully we see this Crippling Fear questionable decision pay off here because, I mean, removing those creatures while we can, I mean, that's always a good idea. But Unfortunately, Crippling Fear was 5 mana. That was a big investment for someone who is
I don't think it matters that much when you have 15 mana on board.
Totally.
But
yeah, 100%.
yeah, it is definitely interesting to see here. So you can see we're tapping 3 mana right now to put in Otawara on the Najeela.
And getting a free attack into Najeela so that all of these ninjas can connect and kill the board.
Interesting.
Yep. Obviously, the most ideal attack here would be into Heliod, but Heliod has plenty. All right, so Otawara on the stack, seeing this, let's check out what's happening with the players here. We're definitely drawing some eyes around as this deliberation goes by because Anthony's got to talk here, and obviously winning the CCU tournament, we know that he can pull his weight in politics, and especially at 8 life, there's only so much you can do to keep yourself alive in this sense.
Okay, so it looks like the table is deliberating, trying to determine what's going to happen here. Nicholas wants to move to combat and is trying to Otawara this Najeela. We have a deflecting swatted. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting that deflecting swat is being read by Luis. Maybe because deflecting swat, maybe they're trying to verify that deflecting swat can actually target this channel ability, which does make sense. Which it's totally legal to do because it can deflect the target of spell or ability. But it's definitely interesting to see this deliberation going on. And actually a judge coming to the table to find out if this interaction is allowed. I'd definitely be curious to see what this exact conversation is like. But we do see head judge walking by. So it's not quite enough to call the attention of him yet. But I'd definitely be interested because I feel like this is very cut and clear. Cut and dry. That Otawara can absolutely be redirected by deflecting swat. And we have good boy Seth finding out what's going on. Yeah, especially evaluating this board state. If Najeela were to take the full attack, we have 1 Mer, which I believe is a 1/1, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Already presented at least 5 damage just from what's on board. Putting Najeela down to 11, which is basically lethal to 4 Yuriko triggers, unless we are extremely unlucky. Cheshire Cat, thanks for the follow. We appreciate it. If anybody has any idea why this judge deliberation is so difficult, please enlighten me, because I feel like I'm missing something very straightforward, like with rings and Basalt Monolith. I definitely don't blame Anthony or Luis for wanting a second opinion here, because their lives are absolutely on the line with this Yuriko player, and Yuriko has been in the driver's seat this entire game. It's easy to feel very powerless when this is the case. The Lion Sash is being activated through a curse totem.
Oh, that makes
interesting.
a lot of sense.
Got it.
Yeah.
Understood, yes.
The target of what deflecting swat is targeting is cast, and then what it's changing the target to is on resolution.
Got it. Very cool.
A common question in the cEDH.
And Lion Sash is allowed to activate through curse totem. Is not.
It is a creature until it becomes an equipment.
Yes, so you have to equip it.
But you
can't equip it while there's a curse totem.
So this Lion Sash is useless.
The problem is that
Now we're going to determine what happens with deflecting swat on the stack here. So we can go back in here and see how the players are deliberating.
Yeah.
There's no longer a judge at the table, so they're just talking amongst themselves now at this point. It looks like we're denoting the deflecting swat
is being changed from the Najeela to the Changeling Outcast.
Okay.
Which is very strange because
we haven't moved to combat yet, right?
I mean, obviously bouncing Yuriko to hands.
Oh, Flusterstorm.
We have
How about
Flusterstorm.
that? Deal with that.
Wonderful.
Well, so wait though. So Otawara is not a cast. So you have deflecting swat and then Flusterstorm. The storm count is only 2.
Correct.
And we have 3 mana available on the Najeela player's turn.
Yes.
So they can just pay for this Flusterstorm, no questions asked.
Of course. But of course, Najeela being extremely behind this entire game, I mean, we have that Soul Ring down there, so mana isn't too much of an issue, especially when faced with the Flusterstorm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now it looks like, yep, so Robert's going to pay for the Flusterstorm. It's only 2 mana because only 2 spells have been cast so far. And you can see here, hey, you can see on Anthony's board, we can see the hand state here. Anthony has a Force of Will in their hand.
And a Fierce Guardianship.
Oh my gosh.
A Force of Will and a Fierce Guardianship happening over here. So I'm wondering,
very cool
why
that
haven't we taken advantage of this site before? Maybe they've been kind of like close to the chest about this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Anthony's showing us for stream on purpose, but this is really cool to be able to see that this is what we've got going on. So now we're casting whatever this is. Is it an
That's it.
Agadeem's
Yep,
Awakening?
that's the one.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Return from your graveyard any number of target creatures that have a different converted mana cost X or less. And I don't know what we paid into this, but we're going to be returning a lot of cards.
All right, attacks being declared here. We have one. Is this
It's a Memnite.
Yeah. Okay. So we have 3 ninjas attacking.
And we
all
have
towards
and,
Yuriko,
and
all
we get
towards
to
Najeela.
ninjutsu
Yes.
for anything that was bounced back to our hand if we have any
Correct.
ninjutsu ninjas.
Yeah, we have Changeling in hand, but obviously that's not ninjutsu,
Yeah.
so we don't have to worry about that there. And we do have Najeela up as a 3/2 blocker, so one of these things is definitely going to die.
Yeah, we're going to see here.
But unfortunately, if we're finally lucky with these Yuriko triggers, I'm a little biased here because I kind of feel for this guy at this point. Maybe the table is dead anyway. Because while we have seen Temporal Trespass, there are a couple options that we can be looking for in terms of
High CMC.
Seagate
spells.
Restoration or Commandeer or Dig Through Time.
Unfortunately, I think that it's going to be really hard for you to deal 19 damage this turn cycle. So you have to try to come up with some other way to win the game.
Tell that to Nicholas's Shadow of Mortality that is totally coming off the top right now. I feel it happening. I'm
you feel you're
manifesting
going to call
it.
this?
Yep,
All right,
I'm
let's see
manifesting
it.
it.
Let's see it.
Natural Crouch. Adam is checking.
We
the
are
donation.
looking.
We
we've
are
been
looking
looking
for 'em.
adamantly. That's why
We
I
have
haven't
access.
responded
We
to
have
you.
access to so many things, deck lists, and all these things.
All right, so
We have a Mr. Gamora coming into play. Was that always there? was that there since last turn?
yeah, there's Mr. Moore was played. last
Okay,
turn,
okay,
yeah.
okay, okay. I'm just very silly. Looks like we're still on combat for Nicholas because we haven't seen these Yuriko flips yet. But I'm very excited. Just watching Yuriko turn all these little 1/1 baby ninjas into something so terrifying. And I cannot enunciate how much this has been a very mild game in terms of Yuriko. We have seen upwards of 9 triggers and very little life loss. Well, incremental life loss, but very little, not a lot of big hits.
Yes, not a lot of big hits at all.
And now we're getting one of these. Oh, it looks like we're having one of the ninjas blocked, and then we're getting combat taken. We have a land, a Cephalid Coliseum. We have a City of Brass.
Oh
No
my
way!
God. Look at the table.
The
just
table
shaking
is
their hands.
cheering. I'm so sorry, Nicholas, you poor boy. Cephalid is land for turn and using a treasure to cast the Changeling Outcast back. I am so sorry. And now it's getting to the point where it's really scary to pass back into Anthony's turn. Anthony, who had never should have been enabled through this Drannith Magistrate, is now presenting a possible win, despite the fact that not a lot of instants or sorceries have been cast into this Mystic Remora. There's just so much mana and potential in play with Urza and Rings of Bright Hearth.
All right, so very unfortunate flip turn for Nicholas there. You can see that Anthony is activating the top there, just kind of fishing around for some cards and seeing.
Yeah, because Anthony, seeing that Fierce Guardianship and the Forcible in hand, none of that really matters because Yuriko just, there's no need to be, there's no worry about anything being countered because you're not going to Forcible a Changeling Outcast unless you're really desperate, which Anthony kind of is. Rolling for this Crypt and going down to 5.
Hey,
This poor man being destroyed by his own Crypt and the Mana Vault.
you know,
Taking a damage off the Mana Vault. No! Anthony!
something that a lot of people will say sometimes is like, hey, whenever you play a Mana Crypt, it might be some mana advantage, but it's also my win condition.
Exactly.
Because eventually that thing's going to kill you.
Yeah, 100%.
This is what we're seeing here. But I think Anthony's set up in a really good position here if he's going to end up taking the game. So we'll see how this plays out.
I see Robert potentially not just rearranging his mana. I thought Robert was about to untap, and I was very confused. Yeah, we have Anthony at 4 here, which there's literally no way that Anthony survives another turn.
Yeah, you have to go for it here and try to win the game.
Absolutely.
So you can see we're going to be drawing a bunch of cards here with this top and maybe trying to
But
get...
I mean, we've been looking at Anthony's hand this whole game. We see 2 counterspells for protection, but not much else, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, not much that you can do after that.
From this angle, we can almost see the pressure on poor Anthony's shoulders.
Yeah, look at Anthony's kind of getting nervous.
As he gets nervous and he tries to pull out a win here. I do not envy him. Using all of his colorless mana to continue to draw the top and pay for the rings. No, we're not paying for the rings because we're only drawing 1 card.
No, because you draw the top as well.
Okay.
So you put the
so you draw the top and then draw one more.
You draw the top
I got
card of
it.
your library and put top on top of your library, but then you copied it, so you draw the top again.
Got it.
So then you can keep going with top, but you need some way.
is crazy difficult. See Anthony counting his mana here and wish he has a lot of it. Even working through all these treasures, Teferi just generates a ridiculous amount of colorless. To the point where I'm kind of curious as to, I mean, obviously going through this phase with the top is a little bit more selective than activating Urza, but
Yeah.
that is definitely an avenue we can take if necessary. But unfortunately, we're going down to 3 because of something.
Oh,
Found the transmute, sacking the.
no,
something?
transmute is in the graveyard.
Oh.
So I think we're just
presenting it to the table. Okay.
just showing them about the transmute.
Totally. Yes,
Loincloth
Loincloth Legends. Does anyone know where to acquire this mana trackers Anthony is using? Yes, Anthony is using these wonderful blue and colorless mana tokens, and you can actually see on Nicholas's board a treasure token, all created by the Epic Storm, our wonderful sponsors and content creators. We love them very much, and these tokens are the perfect size, and they're the perfect. I think they're very clean looking. It's hard for me to find tokens that I don't feel like are too gaudy or too hard to read, and these are very cute and very adorable, and they come in big packs. Let's pan back over to the players as Anthony continues to oh my god, we have so many cards in hand, and a Trinisphere and a Force of Will and a lot of lands, but nothing to do with it. This is so unfortunate to see.
Super unfortunate to be in a situation like this.
Right.
If you're trying to win the game and you don't have the cards in hand to do so.
You just have nothing to work with. But at the same time, the amount of cards that Anthony has seen so far are directly caused by the board wipe from Nicholas's board. So at the same time, the freedom that Anthony has was kind of granted by Nicholas at this point. Which now that Nicholas has gone through such great lengths to try to remove Najeela, I'm seeing that having an open attacker is definitely vital for getting these triggers through. Because losing that one little baby ninja to a Yuriko blocker, to a Najeela blocker is definitely detrimental to the game plan of getting Yuriko triggers, especially when you keep getting freaking lands off of them. You gotta have as many as you like. And that Trinosphere is coming down. Maybe Anthony is trying
to
politicking the table by some time. But unfortunately, this seems to just seal the deal for Yuriko here. And we see that transmute coming back. Definitely trying to barter some. Perhaps Anthony is telling the table that he has some way to get it back, or has some way to interact with it.
Yeah, I don't know
I don't
know what we're explaining here.
Yeah.
Are we playing the Trinisphere? Are we not playing the Trinisphere? Are we transmuting artifacting the Mana Vault? So we're transmuting the rings.
But how did we get that transmute back from the graveyard?
This land might be able to put it.
Oh, Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah. So
okay.
Put
So
that
Mystic
back.
Sanctuary came into play, and because
and
he
now
had
we're getting
3
the Chain
islands,
Veil?
yes, there's a
Okay.
chain sale. Okay, got it. So that Mystic Sanctuary being the land in hand that comes into play and returns instant sorcery to the top of library, draws it with top, casts it, and goes to find the Chain Veil. Looks like it might be game here if this. Oh.
Yeah, basically trying to win the game here. We have 2 pieces of protection in hand with the Teferi out, so we're going to be attempting to win the game here with the Chainfield Teferi.
Yeah, we have Jin Shooting Star in chat saying GG because it looks like unless we have some interaction here, that Mystic Sanctuary really just clutched the game there.
Yeah, which honestly, having a lot of lands in play, I'm trying to really quick explain to the viewers here how the Chainfield Teferi loop works. So let me just really quick pull up the list so I can give you a very quick explanation here.
Planet Girlfriend 262 says hi Adam, but Adam's too busy looking up decks to pay attention to his fans.
Plant Girlfriend 262. Plant Girlfriend. I think I know.
Do you have a plant girlfriend that maybe you're hiding from us?
I have a girlfriend who's obsessed with plants.
Ooh, that might be it.
So let's see here. So the chain fail. The chain fail says that at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't activate a loyalty ability of a planeswalker this turn, you lose 2 life. You may pay 4 and tap it, and for each planeswalker you control, you may activate one of its loyalty abilities once this turn, as though none of its loyalty abilities have been activated this turn. Basically allowing you to do infinite loops with Teferi chain fail activations. So
it just gives
sick.
you infinite mana because you have infinite Teferi on taps? I'm confused. What are we doing with Teferi here?
I mean, there's a slew of things that you can do here. You can
Okay.
basically like infinitely activate Teferi to infinitely untap everything that you have, create infinite mana. You can utilize Urza to like play all the cards off the top of your library. You have
Nice.
a Sensei's Divining Top. You can draw your library. There's like a bunch of different ways that you can do this.
Incredible.
So Teferi Chain Veil, basically Surreal saying CVT still got it. Chain Veil Teferi, basically showing that like boomers can still win the game. So yeah, so when you couple the Chain Veil activation with Teferi's Planeswalker activations, which allow you to untap up to 4 permanents.
It's 4 target permanents. I thought it was artifacts. I was wondering where that blue mana was coming from.
No,
Interesting.
I mean, and like you get to basically just like look at the top cards of your library and you get
put
to
your
draw
deck-
your deck with Teferi itself.
Totally.
So yeah. Basically, like this was the Yuriko player's game to lose, and it looks like wiping the board there might have caused this
Absolutely.
Teferi player to get online.
Because
you know?
at the same time, we saw Mystic Sanctuary, but at that time, Mystic Sanctuary had no possible bounce spells to get back. We haven't seen a single piece of interaction that I can remember, a single piece of creature disruption or removal from Anthony. Anthony had no way of bouncing this Drannith.
Yeah, and we're watching the rest of the players kind of try to figure out how they're going to answer this board here. And Anthony's trying to explain how he's winning the game here, and the rest of the players are like, "What?" Yeah, and Teferi also has Impulse. It might play Ugin. Oh, Urza can't be activated because of the Curse Totem. Yeah, you make a good point. But we still have the top available, so like there's a lot of different things that we can do. So it's just interested to see how we're going to explain the win con here. Although we did play a Trinisphere, so that makes it a little bit harder to interact with. Or even to go with the top line because top costs more mana to you as well. Yeah, and Teferi just draws it on its own. So we're going to draw our library here. We're just explaining this line to the rest of the table. Okay, so it looks like the stream table has a 2-minute extension as well. So for KN saying that the Yuriko threw. I don't know if you'd call it a throw, but like you have the board state basically locked up and you're the only one with the advantage at the table. You have the mana advantage, you have the creature advantage, you have the resource advantage. There's no reason that you need to board wipe there, especially when Najeela can't activate, Heliod can't activate. You have no threats at the table. So what are you worried about?
I can understand the slight panic that Yuriko is going through because Yuriko only has so many ninjas, and especially with those constant whiffs, if Yuriko just got a little bit luckier, I mean, Anthony's at 3 right now. If Yuriko didn't hit constant lands and small spells off of these things, I understand the need to kind of like keep those creatures alive and keep those triggers constantly stacking because even losing one trigger could be the difference between losing and winning, as we can see here.
Well, that's why a lot of players aren't super high on Yuriko as a strategy, simply
Totally.
because of the fact that you're relying on randomness to win the game, right?
Oh, so
You
Clark the Thumbless?
Well, Correct the Thumbness even is more deterministic than Yuriko because
Totally.
at
It's a
Yuriko,
50-50
you just
shot.
have to hit the cards off the top of your library and hope that it's the big CMC spells.
Totally.
At least with Kark and Sakashima, you can make it deterministic at a certain point.
100%.
And your card consistency is a lot better. You don't have to make concessions of cards that do nothing, like Phyrexian Walker and Memnite.
Exactly.
So that's kind of why people don't really play these decks anymore. And then VeinSafe said, hello, highlighted their message again. Hello, Eminent Scipios requesting the next round we watch a pod featuring Comedian MTG. We will do our best to get Comedian into a pod.
We will
to
do our
talk
very
about his
best,
stream.
as long as he isn't in the first pod.
Yeah. So now we're going to figure out here.
It's interesting that we haven't quite scooped up yet.
I wonder if we're making the Teferi player manually play this out.
Right. If we have some kind of interaction that could... It seems like Luis has a piece of interaction that he is very very carefully trying to use. The Najeela player, Robert, looks a little bit like he is not understanding why we're still playing, which I totally get.
Yeah, and people in chat are just talking about how the Yuriko player just should have done nothing at all to remove the
Yes.
Drannith. So I don't know what we're tracking here with these colorless... Oh, are we tracking the colorless mana that Anthony has available to him? Yes, that must be what we're doing. All right, I'm actually going to hop in there and figure out what's going on.
That sounds good. This is Jin Shooting Star saying this is how outdated decks win because it is very... I wouldn't say non-deterministic because it is deterministic, but there's a point to interact that Luis is waiting for that it seems like... Counting the colorless mana that is being created, but not... I'm wondering what these dice on Chainville are. Maybe counting the amount of times...
Probably number of activations.
Number of times it is activated.
I mean, I play against Anthony enough in locals. Very good player. Deliberately chooses to play CVT because that's what he likes.
Right.
Definitely one of my favorites to get into top 16.
Yeah, as Earl
He's
Ceaseless
very good.
Bruiser is saying that older decks still have game.
Yeah.
What is that doing? He's like, Teferi. I'm like, thanks.
So the dice on Luis's board is representing the colorless mana that they have floating, that Anthony has floating with all these activations, and then you can see how many times Chainfield Teferi is being activated with the dice that are on Chainfield Teferi. So they're making him manually play it out. At this point, the game is pretty much over with, but they're making Anthony manually play this out. So I guess we're going to manually resolve all these triggers.
This is wonderful, yeah.
Fibblethip 2727, yes. Standings are online. You can go to eminence.events, go on Silicon Dynasty, and you can view the brackets live in real time as matches get posted and rounds end. So make sure that you do that at Eminence.
Oh, we see a power artifact on the Grim Monolith, officially producing infinite mana.
Yeah.
So we're
now we're getting rid of it. Yeah,
now
that
we're
color is
good.
bad.
Okay, here we go.
No reason to track this anymore.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, and we have so many cards in hand. I don't know what you can have at this point that deals with Anthony's board state.
Totally.
If he is letting him play it out, he has to have Angel's Grace. Interesting read from rule used. I'd be very interested to see if we have an Angel's Grace. The only problem is Angel's Grace has split second, right? So you cannot counter it. So, very much a possibility here.
I'm curious.
Ooh, that might... but Azrael saying that Angel's Grace doesn't matter here. Well, why would that be the case? Because
you can't win the game that turn, so he's forced to pass the turn, and you can't do the chain of activations at instant speed. Therefore, giving Nicholas another.
Well, he'll be able to do the chain flow activation at instant because he can -10 it and do it at instant speed. The thing is, though, is that you need to do you need to have something like Lab Man in play to get the final draw. But if we have infinite mana, you should be able to do that. So we'll see how this plays out.
Kai and Chad Fervent Alchemist saying hashtag let Teferi win 2023. Kai, you weren't at CCU. You don't understand the suffering that myself.
We have a
Hullbreaker Horror in the field.
How many times do we want to make infinite mana?
Yeah. How many win conditions can we present to the board? But I mean, it's true. None of these things actually. We can bounce all of their permanents, all of their non-land permanents.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out and why we're making Anthony play this out here.
We see.
Okay, so it looks like, are we -10ing the Teferi? There's so much going on
There's
right
so
now.
many things. I don't even know what this card is right here.
I don't think the Angel's Grace.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if he's got extra turn effects and things like that, it's not going to matter at all.
Which Luis wouldn't be aware of, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
Nexus of Fate. Nexus of Fate.
Oh, Nexus of Fate. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of ways to get around this, so it does not matter. This is why I'm glad that we have this table talk viewpoint here, because the other two players look defeated, and Luis is just staring very intently at the rest of this board, trying to figure out how he's going to lose here, because it's pretty inevitable that you're going to lose.
Oh, wait, we see Nexus of Fate in hand. Hopefully, yes, we see Nexus of Fate, and it's being shown to the table.
Okay, so now we're getting tips in now. So it looks like Dad has tipped $4.20. Thanks, Dad, for the $4.20 donation. Don't forget that any tips that you give to the stream tonight will be given to Extra Life. They do amazing things. They help children all over the world. So make sure that all donations for tonight are going to be given to Extra Life from Eminence. So if you would love to support that, they're here at Silicon Dynasty supporting this event. We want to support them the same way. Now you can see Nicholas here kind of talking to Lewis saying, hey, man, we're losing. So
the game is over.
Maybe we should just shake hands.
Hope is lost.
This is so fun. This view is so funny.
It is really funny. Maladoxic, yeah, because people punt. I really, as soon as it happened, as soon as that Dranith left, I was extremely confused.
We all said it. As soon as the Dranith Magistrate leaves the battlefield, you're opening up the Teferi player to just take the game. And the Yuriko doesn't win fast enough. Here we can see a cameo from Ken Bauman. Really hard player to read, especially with the mask on. You can't tell what he's thinking and, what diabolic things are going on behind that face.
Yep.
So. He's just flipping coins in his mind all the time.
We have Josh back there with the Izzet t-shirt playing Niv Mizzet when I can't, doing a wonderful job of representing. And Manatar LOL saying that Anthony still hasn't presented one kind, which is totally fair. We have a Nexus of Fate shown, but we don't have a way to end the game. We have infinite turns presented, but we don't see.
Get some saying Anthony's won, they just don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can
Correct.
bounce everything on the board. You can take infinite turns. You can make infinite constructs. You can make infinite combats. You can win the game a million different ways. You don't need to present a win con here. You have a hull breaker on board. You bounce a cursed totem.
All right, we
okay,
finally
there we
see
go.
the-
Now,
okay,
we're,
wonderful.
now we're conceding.
Great,
The
great.
concede is here. Yeah, I don't know why that didn't happen as soon as the hull breaker came down. It was game over.
Zoomers don't know how Teferi Chainville works.
I think they're just trying to play to time. Even if you play to time, it doesn't matter. Anthony has the win this turn.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, if you can make infinite mana, you can
Yeah.
make enough constructs to just win in combat, can't you? So
Right.
you can win in 5 turns. So
Right.
yeah. So yeah, it's out of the question. Yeah. All right. So yeah, here you can see they're filling out the card, and that will be the game. What an intense one that was. So Anthony, the player that won the Cash Cards Unlimited tournament, 2 wins and I think 2 and a loss. I think they're 2-1. So great start.